Hello, everyone. I'm Vinicius Pachá, and I'm the senior game developer at Supersonic. And today I'm going to talk with you guys, and I want to discuss how to be a leaner and faster game developer so we can release our games faster, right? A little bit of my story was an indie game developer and developed a game for Steam, and it was a really hardcore game. So it was an online real-time multiplayer, and this game took around 3 years of development until we started to test. And the funny fact is that after 3 years, it was a fail. So in the end, I was trying to see for myself, okay, I don't want to spend another 3 years in a game that could not be a profitable game. So I decided to take a new approach, and I thought about making smaller games and thought a little bit about mobile development. And after a while, I found hyper casual, and I thought that hyper casual was the market that I wanted to be in, because hyper casuals are really small games. You can test the games. So I was an indie game developer like you guys. I was making prototypes for a lot of publishers. I'm already making hyper casuals for more than 3 years, and I worked with Voodoo, Lion Studios, and today I'm the lead game developer at Supersonic. And here I want to talk with you what is lean software development and how we can relate this lean software development with the hyper casual market. The lean process is a process that one of the principles is to minimize the waste. So we need to think uh, how we can uh, save our work, and also it's an iterative process, and this is one thing that relates with the hyper casual, because all the hyper casuals we go from test to test and improving the game on each iteration. Also, lean works because it reduces the risk, makes you fail a lot faster, and focus always on market validation. And what I mean by saving your work and minimizing the waste is any extra features that we do, it takes some time, and most of the features are not that necessary for the first test. Also, any partially done work, which is some work that you start to do, but then you're not sure if it's going to be on the game, and in the end you end up with like a middle done feature. Any kind of test switching is also a waste. Sometimes we try to make two prototypes, three prototypes at a time, and this might be more time consuming than making one at a time. And to introduce this concept, I want to talk a little bit about product value curve. Every product has some curve that at first it goes really fast and we are adding a lot of value to the product, but there is some time that this curve kind of tends to not change that much. Imagine a car when you're going from 0 velocity to 100 velocity. We go from 0 to 80 really, really fast. And from 80 to 100, we need to make a lot of effort and we are not adding that much of value. So the same goes with the product. So we need to ask ourselves, what value is enough to test our game? And what amount of resources do you want to spend on your prototype? As we can see again in this curve, there is a sweet spot, a point there that after this point, we are spending a lot of resources, could be time, could be money, paying salaries, could be your work, and we are not adding a lot of value in the product. So finding this sweet spot to test our game is our key. So how? How we can find and define the sweet spots of our game, right? We need to focus on CPI. CPI is our greatest risk. We all know that every prototype that has a good CPI and bad retention, we can iterate and we can improve the retention. But when we have the opposite, a bad CPI and a good retention, we actually don't have much and we cannot do much with that. So it's better to go to the next prototype if you have some case with bad CPI. So when we are defining an MVP for our idea, we need to always think video first. Is this relevant for the video? Is this understandable for the video? So any feature that you're going to do, if it's not understandable in a video, it means that the feature is not that necessary for the user acquisition part of the process. So you might skip it for the first test. We also need to invest in the core gameplay. All the hyper casuals that are out there that has been a hit, they have really satisfying gameplay. The execution makes the difference. When you're talking about hyper casual, we know that there are many clones out there, and we need to stand out from the clones. We also need to work on our game feel and visual feedback, so players could understand the game with those feedbacks in only 3 seconds of a video. This is just an example of different levels of execution. Here we see on the left, Dig and Escape, which is a game with the same rules as Escape Masters from Legendary, but we can also note that the execution on the right side, the colors are brighter, we have more contrast, and we see, even with the same rules, the left game wasn't really successful, and the right one was a hit. So we need to pay attention to our own execution. Let's practice a little bit. One of Supersonic games called Cheerleader Run, when we had this idea, we wanted to make a runner with cheerleaders stacking and making this kind of tower. So we were planning the project, and when we were planning the project, we listed those features. So we need to make the collecting mechanic, we need to do the tower formation, we need to lose cheerleaders, we need to have a fever mode as well, we need to have final multipliers to give more depth to the player, to give more reason for the player to collect more cheerleaders, and we need to put some upgrades so we can give this sense of progression. But those all features are not that really necessary for the first test, right? So we decided to cut fever mode and final multipliers and upgrades and went to the first test with only the core gameplay, which is collecting mechanic, tower formation, and losing cheerleaders. And this is actually funny because we can show these 3 features in a 3-second video. And this was the first test for the cheerleaders. Let's play. You see that here we have 0 seconds video. We are already showing the tower formation and the collection of cheerleaders. And here on 2 seconds, we show the ragdolls. And right after, at 6 seconds, we show the ragdolls again. So basically with 3 features, they are not that complicated features, but we invested a lot on this gameplay. As you can see, when you are collecting the cheerleaders have this flip, and this was basically what we tested for the first ever iteration on cheerleaders. So I want to talk about some mistakes that I did. So I spent 3 years making hyper casuals, making prototypes. So I did a lot of mistakes, and I hope you guys can enjoy my mistakes with me. So mistake number 1 is fear of buying assets on the asset store. And at first, I didn't want to buy the assets because I wanted my game to be unique. But in the end, you need to stand out. Your game needs to stand out on the gameplay and not on the assets per se. So if you're not an artist, there is no shame on buying assets on the asset store. There are many hits there that has assets on the asset store, And if you're a programmer and you want to save some time on those vibration scripts, you can just buy one in the asset store. I think it's actually not that expensive, and the value that brings to your game and the time that you're saving is much better. Mistake number two, making a lot of levels on the first iteration. We need always to keep in mind that we don't know that our game is going to work. So if you're investing on creating 20 levels, you can't test 20 videos because it's expensive. So try to focus on making only 3, 5 levels, just make some kind of difference and make them on loop. For example, cheerleaders had only 5 levels on the first iteration, and actually the retention was pretty nice with 5 levels. And I've tested other games with 20 levels, 25 that didn't have good retention. So mistake number three, solving problems that you don't have. Sometimes we have a really good idea, but we have some limitations because of the mobile performance. We need to also target our games to mobile. But if we have an idea and the idea is not performing well on mobile, for example, those crowd games, there's a lot of segments in the screen, and this might lead to low FPS on the device. Maybe this is not a problem for now. Just wait for the first test, see if you have a good CPI, and if you have a good CPI, then it's a problem that you need to solve. If you don't have a good CPI, you don't need to spend time solving these issues because you actually don't have them yet. Number four, fixing bugs. Uh, Fixing bugs is a little bit tricky because we as developers know that our bugs that are really easy to fix could be one line of code or 2 lines of code, but there are other ones that is really hard to reproduce, and those happens also with this monkey test bug, which is basically you get the device and you tap like crazy until you reproduce this bug, and this could be a little bit time consuming, and it's not that necessary for the first test as well. You can test the CPI even if your game is bugged. Mistake number five, adding sounds. Adding sounds could be really time consuming. You need to find the sound. You need to balance the sound because sometimes you can find sounds that they are higher than the others. And also when you are implementing the sound, you can also make new bugs. And this could add, I don't know, maybe 1 week or 2 weeks of development in one prototype. And this is not that necessary for the first test as well. If you think your game really needs sound, I suggest just put some fake sounds on the video and try to see if the game works. Mistake number six. This one is the one that I love most because when I'm making my own ideas, I get excited and I want to make more than it's necessary. So I ended up making customizations and metagame and missions. And there was a game in the past that I could test in 2 weeks, and I waited 2 months to test because I wanted to make the game ready. And in the end, the only thing I had was frustration because the CPI test wasn't well. So I spent 1 month and a half more that was necessary to do. And after this frustration, I was even like taking some time to rest and to rethink new prototypes. A little bit of more tips. Create your own templates. Your own template could be a UI flow, could be any Unity project that has the SDKs, the settings, some kind of level manager to control the level transitions from level 1 to level 2 to level 3, vibration manager to have this kind of small haptics in the phone, and analytics. We all know that all those features are common on every hyper casual, regardless of the genre. So here's an example of mine. You can see that we have the victory screen, And after the victory screen, we go to the menu, and here's level 6. And when we complete, you go to the victory screen again, and the next one is level 7. So I have all this controller ready, done for every project that I start, so I'm never starting from scratch. Tip number 2, be organized. Try to think ahead. Anything that you're creating now for your prototype could be used in the future. So you can have your second prototype be faster than the first, and the third one could be even faster than the second. Uh, I think I did more than 30 prototypes alone by myself, and my first prototype took 2 months, and today I can deliver a game in 1 week, 2 weeks. Tip number 3, take some time to focus on one genre. If you feel like you're strong in a runner, take some time, make 3 runners. If you think you're strong on FPS, take some time, build a template, and focus a little bit on FPS. You'll never start from scratch, and also you will improve on your next game. Your second FPS is better than the first, and the third FPS is better than the second. That's how it goes. Final thoughts? Fail fast, fail often. I think this is key for the hyper-casual market. I think you will all, as developers, have some fail game, right? It's really easy to fail when we are testing hyper-casual, so we need to fail a lot until we get a hit. Keep it lean. Do only what's necessary to test an idea. You never know your MVP will work, so try to keep everything as lean as possible. Invest on the core gameplay. Invest on features that's going to look good in the video. Uh, on hyper casual, all the users are coming from an ad, so they need to watch a video. They need to understand your gameplay, and this needs to be really, really clear. And that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed, and thanks.